Channel open. Welcome back to WeeklyTrek, a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on January 17th, 2020, and is current through the Star Trek Short Trek episode, Children of Mars, so beware of spoilers. All right, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
WeeklyTrek is a 30-minute news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in a new golden age of Star Trek. There are 5 television shows at some point in production, possibly more on the way, and enough merchandise to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me, and I'll help you sort the real facts from a lot of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone, and my guest this week is returning guest and the co-host of the Shore Leave podcast right here on the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network, Marina Kravchuk. Marina, welcome back to WeeklyTrek.
Thank you very much for having me back. This is exciting. We certainly live in exciting times, so let's talk about it.
We do, and I think I probably know the answer to this question, but I will ask it nonetheless. Marina, I want to know something that's got you feeling good about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
This week, seeing the pure excitement of the premieres that have been happening in LA and in London, and just vicariously experiencing through my friends who did get a chance to attend either one of those. And so it just fills my heart with so much just happiness. I can't probably properly verbalize it. So I am super excited just to having observed that, and I'm super excited, and I'm just literally cannot sit still. I'm very excited for the premiere. So we're so close, and I cannot wait.
Me too. This was my thing last week. This was, I think the week before. But at this point, how can it be anything other than the fact that as of the day of recording, we are 6 days away from the premiere of Star Trek Picard. There are people, both in the US and the UK, who have seen between 1 and 3 episodes already and have formed their opinions on it. We are only a few short days away from doing that ourselves. And by the time people hear this, they will be even closer. And I think, yes, I'm really excited about the premiere being so close. But I think one of the things I'm feeling really good about this week is the way in which both CBS here in the US and Amazon over in the UK seem to have gone all out in terms of preparing the premiere and doing the promotion for it. I mean, the pictures that came out of London of the way in which they had basically entirely redressed Piccadilly Circus tube station into Piccadilly tube station was really cool. Sort of advertising everywhere, all kinds of character posters. It was just so fabulous. And the event here in Los Angeles was extremely glitzy and looked like it was a great time. Obviously, I was not there. Marina, you weren't there, but we both know people who were,
yeah.
And it sounds like they had a fabulous time. So it is getting really close and getting really exciting.
Fantastic. I mean, literally, they pulling all the stops. It's extraordinary to see just how the franchise is being honored in every aspect of that word. So I cannot wait.
All right. Well, with that, let's get into a packed week of top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
So our first story this week is that something we've been speculating for a while as having been the case has been formally announced. Yes, Star Trek Picard will be returning for a season 2. That has been confirmed. The renewal of the show was announced the day before the premiere. There was a press junket in association with the Television Critics Association winter meeting that was taking place in LA, and CBS All Access had a section in which they devoted some time to Star Trek Picard. And at that panel, they announced that, yes, Star Trek Picard will be returning for a second 10-episode season. There has obviously been a lot of reporting about this. It's lots of different news articles that have written about it. The most interesting, I think, actually comes from the Hollywood Reporter, which indicates that not only has Picard been renewed for a second season, but also that it has gotten an informal green light to begin work on a season 3, with the intent being for them to both write the 2 seasons back to back and shoot the 2 seasons back to back in an effort to both control costs and to make sure that everybody's schedules line up properly. Hollywood Reporter is the only outlet that has sort of speculated or got sources on a season 3. Obviously, CBS All Access has not been commenting on it, but this is really exciting. In addition to the renewal of Picard for season 2, they also announced a new executive producer who is widely considered likely to become the new showrunner. Terry Matalas, who you may know as the executive producer of the 12 Monkeys TV show, which is actually a really good TV show on sci-fi that I recommend you check out if you want to see an example of his work, is coming on board, likely to replace Michael Chabon as showrunner for Star Trek Picard. What's most interesting about Matalas, though, is that he is not a stranger to Star Trek. He was a production associate for the last 2 seasons of Star Trek Voyager and for all seasons of Star Trek Enterprise. And he is the credited writer for Impulse and Stratagem in Star Trek Enterprise Season 3. So by no means a stranger to the Star Trek universe, a lot like Joe Menosky joining the writer's room of Star Trek Discovery Season 1. Terry is another member of the production team from the Berman era who has made his way over to the Kurtzman era. So very, very exciting. Marina, we haven't even seen Star Trek Picard Season 1 yet, and we now have Season 2 on the way, and maybe Season 3. How's that got you feeling?
I'm super excited. What's more, the way I was reading all these news is that it seems to be pretty much everything so far about this particular series. Like you said, we haven't seen a single shot of it, I mean, except for what we saw in the trailers, but everything seems to be very meticulously planned. So we don't quite have this sort of craziness that accompanied everything that preceded the first season and the premiere of Discovery, with the changes in the showrunners and this and that. And here, everything is that, it's very carefully choreographed. So yeah, they probably will shoot it back to back. And let's face it, I mean, as far as we're all aware, there's other entities being produced along with that. I mean, besides Discovery, we know Section 31 is upcoming and everything. So it seems to me that they already found considering the effort involved in producing all this, they probably already found the flow of very carefully choreographing all of this. So yeah, Michael Chabon is going to leave in order to produce that Pulitzer Prize novel, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, and Terry's going to come in and take over. And I'm sure there's probably going to be no drama because this has already been planned and put in motion.
Yeah, I think, lots of people were, sort of a bit disappointed that Michael Chabon would not be staying with the show past season 1. I mean, obviously totally understandable that he's leaving given the opportunity that he has, and it's on perfectly positive terms, and he will remain associated with the production of Picard. But Matalas is a great choice to replace him, not only because the man really knows the Star Trek, right? He worked on 6 years worth of Berman-era productions, but also because he too has a lot of experience with developing a tightly plotted, interweaving show that has lots of complicated elements to it that ultimately pay off really, really well. 12 Monkeys was a very underrated but very, very good show, and that speaks very highly, I think, of what's to come with Picard under new stewardship. Now, Chabon is not leaving immediately, and we know sort of production for season 2 is underway, and it sounds like the writer's room has been up and running for a while, and Matalas is already in the room and working on the show. So there is that transition in place and taking place right now. And so, it should be very exciting. And that is not the only news on the production of Star Trek Picard. We have news of a new after show, which is very exciting. So Star Trek Discovery, the season 1 had an after show, After Trek, that came on CBS All Access right after the end of the episode every week. That show did not return for Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Instead, they had something called The Ready Room, which was a 15-minute Facebook Live sort of interview with one of the cast members. It did not have any of the same kind of bells and whistles that After Trek that was hosted by Matt Myra had. Well, they have announced that Ready Room will have a new host, and it seems like a new format that gets us a bit closer back to the After Trek show, and that host will be none other than Mr. Wesley Crusher himself, Will Wheaton. Yes, so Will Wheaton has been announced as the host of the Ready Room, and it does sound like this new Ready Room is going to be a hybrid between the old After Trek and the Ready Room that we got for season 2 of Discovery. A bit more glitzy and glamorous than the Facebook Live Ready Room from season 2, but maybe not quite up to the sort of production heights of After Trek during season 1. The Ready Room will be available the same day that Picard releases. We actually don't know yet when during the day Picard will release, whether it will be 8:30 p.m. Eastern as Discovery Season 2 was, or whether it will be released early in the morning like the short treks have been. But the Ready Room will be available by evening. Will Wheaton has talked a bit about the show already. I think one of the things that CBS really wants to do is make sure that it's available on as many platforms as possible. So in addition to CBS All Access, it will be on YouTube, Instagram TV, a few other places that people can get access to it. And in addition to having cast interviews like the previous version of the Ready Room did, this one will also have things like episode previews, etc., which was one of the things that I really missed from After Trek. Marina, you think you'll be tuning in to the Will Wheaton hosted Ready Room?
Oh, yes. I mean, aside from the fact that I adore Will, he certainly provides this, just something about that connection. You know, he has the connection to TNG and to Picard having played a role. So there's like this additional oomph to it, so to speak. So plus, again, he's also an excellent host. You know, if you've seen him do pretty much anything online or seen him in panels at the conventions, he's a wonderful speaker. So it's certainly going to be exciting to see how it's going to translate for him being on the other side of the table, if you will, talking to the cast. So I'm really looking forward to that. I am also very glad that they do have more of an access, so to speak. They have additional platforms. So it's not going to be just on Facebook because, let's face it, not everybody has Facebook. So great that they're going to have it on YouTube. Great that they're going to have it through CBS All Access, obviously. So it's very exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. He did hint that there will be exclusive previews and well, as he termed it, other exclusive stuff that will blow your mind. So we shall see. This is great stuff. And this came out of nowhere. I kind of did not expect that they would be necessarily doing something. I thought it was going to kind of stay in the same vein as they had before with the Ready Room on Facebook with possibly a different host. But this makes it so much more special. So it kind of ties into this whole excitement about Star Trek Picard in general.
Yeah, Will is a great host. I really enjoyed his short-lived show that he had on Sci-Fi, the Will Wheaton Project or something like that. I forget the name at this point. But he is really good, and he has been great at conventional panels that I have seen him at. And so what a great choice. Somebody who knows Star Trek, loves the genre in general, has the sort of presenting chops, and also has an emotional connection both to the series lead but to some of the guest stars that will be appearing throughout the show. I mean, this is really great. I think the other thing to mention too is it doesn't sound like, from the way that a lot of the sort of press materials have been written about this, is that it doesn't sound like will just be doing Picard. It sounds like he's going to be doing this Ready Room for lots of the different shows, which could include also doing it for Discovery Season 3, maybe also for Lower Decks when that comes out. So it sounds like he's in this not just for the 10 episodes of Picard Season 1, but maybe for all of the current Star Trek content that's coming out, which is also very exciting.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I can't wait.
So our third story, again, staying on Star Trek Picard, a lot of this stuff is all coming out of either TCA press junket or the premiere itself. So there was a press junket day. There have been a number of interviews that have come out of that, roundtable interviews that journalists were doing. We'll cover a bit this week. We'll do some more next week. The one that I thought was most newsworthy in relation to Star Trek Picard, though, was a comment that Alex Kurtzman made answering a question about whether Worf would be appearing, and if he did, whether he would look like Worf from The Next Generation in Deep Space Nine, or whether he would look like the sort of Klingon redesign that we have seen in Star Trek Discovery. So in the answer to the question, will Worf appear, Kurtzman said possibly, and then pivoted to the same kind of thing he's been saying about other sort of legacy characters when he's been asked about it, which is, in order for legacy characters to appear, they need to have a really solid reason to be there. It can't just be like a cameo show, and that there has to be some really important story reason for that to happen. And the way the comments were phrased kind of makes me feel like we're not going to see Worf in Picard season 1, though Patrick did say over the weekend that it was his hope that all of the TNG cast members would appear in Star Trek Picard at some point during the series run. So even if we don't see Crusher, LaForge, or Worf in season 1, maybe we'll see them in season 2 or in season 3. So that does then beg the question, if Worf is to appear, is he going to have makeup that's very similar to his previous appearances, or are they going to change the makeup to have him look a bit more like a Discovery-era Klingon? And Alex Kurtzman was very clear on this fact. If Worf appears in Star Trek Picard, his makeup will be the same as the makeup that he has right now. So I'll quote him, so there's no confusion. He says, no, he's got to look the same. We're not changing that. He then goes on to talk a little bit about how that the Romulans in Star Trek Picard have variations that match the different variations of Romulan that we have seen throughout the franchise. So they have the sort of smooth-headed TOS Star Trek 09 Romulans, but they also have Romulans that have forehead ridges as well. And there was a publicity photo that was released this past weekend of Evan Evagora's Elnor, and behind him are a group of Romulans. And if you zoom in on the Romulans and take a look at their faces, you can see there is a combination of Romulans, some with no ridges and some that do have ridges. And so, Kurtzman was talking about it in that regard and said, you'll see some Romulans that are just about the ears. You'll see some with the ears and deeper ridges on the forehead. So I have to believe that there are different iterations of Klingons depending on where they are from. Basically saying it's perfectly reasonable for both the Discovery-era Klingons and the TNG-era Klingons to coexist in the same way that we've had two different kinds of Romulans, and now for the first time, we will see them coexist together on screen. Marina, 2 questions. 1, do you want to see Worf reappear in Star Trek Picard? And 2, how do you feel about these comments that Kurtzman made about the makeup?
Well, any legacy character would be exciting to see. But I'm very glad to see that sort of attitude, what he says, that has to be a reason, because otherwise it's nothing but a fan service, and fan service is not always good. So yeah, if they have some sort of very good solid reason for Worf to appear in Picard, I only welcome that. It'll be great. I mean, it adds all these connections in this already existing Star Trek universe. Fantastic stuff. So let's see what's going to happen. Like you said, it's probably not going to happen in this season. If season 2, season 3, fantastic. As far as everything else, yeah, I was taken aback when Discovery premiered because it was such a radical departure from what you would expect a Klingon to look.
Right.
But at the same time, I was kind of keeping in the back of my mind that, yeah, we're talking about a Klingon empire. And even though different species were always kind of presented, all Vulcans have the same haircut. What's up with that? There's got to be some sort of natural variation because you are talking about something that, and like I said, a Klingon empire. It's not just one planet where people look differently. I mean, look at all of us. We're talking about something that spans hundreds, if not thousands of planets. So there is certainly a reasoning that makes sense that not all Klingons would look alike, but just the way things are, because we are talking, this is, as has been spelled out multiple times already in the various interviews, this is not TNG, but it builds up on it. It's 20 years after TNG. So I see no reason why they would change. It would be logical, pardon the pun, to change the way Worf looks. I mean, obviously he's going to be older and gray and all that, but I would not, if somebody said, yeah, Worf is coming, I would not expect him to look much different. Sort of like look more in Discovery vein rather than what he looked on TNG. It just somehow, it never even occurred to me, to be honest.
Yeah, Worf is Worf, right? And Kurtzman is totally right. If Worf is going to appear, Worf has to look like Worf. He can't look like somebody different. I mean, that character particularly, who was a main character for 11 seasons worth of television and 4 movies. I mean, that is a considerable amount of time spent with this character. And yes, the sort of look that Worf had did morph over time, but it would be a hugely significant change to go in the Discovery Klingon direction.
Exactly. Klingons happen to be my favorite aliens. closely followed by the Borg, but I adore Klingons. It's such a fantastic creation. And yeah, like I said, I was taken aback the first time I saw. I want to see how the story unfolds. I'm not going to get distracted by the minutia.
So we will see. Fingers crossed. I continue to believe that there are appearances in season 1 of Star Trek Picard that we don't know about yet.
Oh yes. This is actually something I was going to kind of mention probably closer to the end of the episode, but this is my just a gut feeling that there is just to kind of think about it, it's something that Jerry Ryan mentioned. He was shocked that they managed to keep her and Jonathan Delarco's involvement a secret for as long as they did. I mean, technically it never leaked. It never looked, even though they were filming in the most populous area where you can possibly think of. And yet we didn't know about it until it actually, boom, there's the trailer and there they are. So I have a feeling that if things were going that well on that front, what else we don't know about? So yeah, chances are there's something else might be there. And then again, it could be just our wishful bunk. And that's all we get. We actually already know the full cast, but who knows? It's fun to speculate. Yeah, the gut feeling, I hope that there is something else that we don't know about. That would be just this revelation sometime, who knows, midway through season, and everybody's going to be just have their minds blown completely.
We'll talk more about this at the end of the episode, but I think I am with you that there's more to come. We'll put a pin in that until we get to the speculation section. So cool. Worf. Let's get him back and let's make sure he looks the same. So our last story of the day is pivoting away from Star Trek Picard to the future of the franchise as a whole, and is perhaps the most tantalizing piece of news that we got out of the press junket last Sunday, but is also the one where there's the least amount of there, which is why I decided to put it at the end. Alex Kurtzman, as reported by TrekCore.com, at the press roundtable that he was doing on the day before the LA premiere for Star Trek Picard, they were talking about Section 31 and production for that spinning up, and there being a writer's room and it, going into production. And then as they are wrapping the conversation, Alex Kurtzman just casually drops the news that there are 2 unannounced live action Star Trek shows in development, which is super exciting because there are already 5 television shows in production, and it sounds like there are 2 more live action shows that they are working on that have not yet been announced, that they would like to add to this expanding slate of shows that are designed to give us that year-round Star Trek content. Who knows what those shows are? For regular listeners of Weekly Trek, you'll know that I almost certainly have a very strong opinion about what I think one of those shows is, but that's only one of them, the Pike Show, obviously. I'm curious, Marina, what do you think's going on? What do you think these shows are?
Well, first of all, what a bombshell, right?
What a bombshell.
And the thing is that he just, like you said, he just casually dropped it, and then that's it, mum. No other, no expansion on that, no further clarifications, comments. That's it. Here. Yes, Pike is certainly a very tantalizing thing, especially it has basis because obviously, again, since they are so carefully keeping track of people's reactions, everybody knows how wonderful the whole thing with Captain Pike in the second season of Discovery was. This was a complete dark horse and everybody just fell in love with the character. Certainly has the basis for, they have this thing that we already have the audience for it. However, there is something that, and it has been mentioned, the whole thing as far as the Star Trek Academy, there was probably going about 2 years ago, there was sort of like this mentions, the possibilities that this is something that might happen, which I think is a nice thing because it kind of adds another aspect to the genre. I mean, we already have, so we have Discovery, we have Picard and Section 31, all 3 of them being quite different in tone, plus the 2 animated series, again, different, one for adults, one for the kids. You add on the Star Trek Academy, you have this additional bit where you're talking about younger people, but not kids. Even though, obviously we're talking, kids are probably watching everything in Star Trek, but that's another way, another slice of life, if you will, as far as Star Trek universe is concerned. So that certainly I think is a possibility. And then you know what? Anything is open. I think that they can probably come up with a whole lot of other things that we probably might not even be close to guessing. So I'm very excited. I'm super, super curious what it possibly could be. I'm also very curious when they're going to announce more details. Is this something that's going to happen once they have everything else running? So Discovery Picard, perhaps Section 31 will finally be out, which I don't believe is supposed to happen until Discovery Season 3 drops. So we're looking, this is a very long road ahead. So let's keep coming up with theories. But until we actually hear what's going on, it's just theories.
Yeah. I mean, with the exception of the Nickelodeon show, by virtue of being the only Star Trek show that we know is destined for a network other than CBS All Access. So I'm not saying that it won't also be available on CBS All Access. We don't know that yet, but it's designed to be on Nickelodeon. They've sort of been clear that the intent is for them only to have one show on at a time. So we know that means, therefore, that they've only got 52 weeks out of the year to work with, and you're looking at 10 to 13 episode seasons. So you can really only do 3, maybe 4 seasons at a time per year in order to fill that whole year. And even that feels very full. So you're really sort of probably more talking about what we're doing this year, where we're just getting 3. So just based on the things that are in production right now, that's going to put any additional live action shows into next year or the year. I mean, most likely the year after next, right?
Yeah.
Because even if they're announced this year, they film, let's say they film a year from now, because it takes a year for them to do the full development and pre-production. That puts them on air either the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022. So these are still miles away from now. And I think that's probably why Kurtzman is not going into additional detail on them. And in some ways, that's why I also hesitate to walk too far down this path of talking too much about them, because it's like, A, it's going to be a really long time until we get them. And B, it's not like there isn't plenty else for us to talk about that's really cool that's premiering in, 6 days from now. But I think you're right. The smart money, if you're a betting man or woman and you want to put some money on what those 2 shows are, I think your highest odds are going to be a Pike show, and your second highest odds is going to be on the Starfleet Academy show. For the reasons that you laid out, I mean, first of all, it's one that we know has been in development for a while. Kurtzman and Caden have never sort of given much information about it, but they have definitely acknowledged that it was on their list of ideas. And to the point that you made about them wanting all of the shows to be quite different, that does give you a very different slice on the franchise, certainly from the live action perspective. We're not sure what this Nickelodeon animated show for kids, the direction that's going to go in, but this would be a very different spin on the franchise. It would be something new. It would be something fresh. And that does seem to be what they're really pushing for with all of these new projects, is what's the new thing? What's the fresh thing coming down the pike?
It's like there's internet meme going around. There's a picture of an iceberg, and you have basically all the series that we already have kind of being the tip of it, and then the rest of this bulk of the iceberg that's all below water is all these possibilities, all the stories you can possibly generate. And it's very true. I mean, even like if there will be a Starfleet Academy show, like which era would you set it in?
Right.
Is it going to be something Kirk era? Is it going to be something, 24th century TNG era? Is it something all the way in the future when it's all brand new? Anything is possible. So who knows? Who knows what else it will come up? The possibilities are endless.
So maybe we'll get an announcement about what one of these shows is, maybe at San Diego Comic-Con this year. Thinking about it, the big things they're going to take into San Diego Comic-Con this year is probably, well, that's the other interesting thing. So Heather Caden said at the LA red carpet that she did not know whether Discovery Season 3 or Lower Decks Season 1 was going to be up next after Picard Season 1. She indicated that both would be ready to go, and it was up to CBS All Access to pick which. You've got to figure it's probably Discovery, but could be Lower Decks. So we don't know for sure which one of them, but depending on which one of them it is, I think San Diego Comic-Con will have a focus on whatever the next one is up after that. And the Section 31 show, assuming they've filmed a few episodes by then, which they should have, just based on what we've been hearing about where the production is for that show. It's what they've said before is Section 31 will go in front of the cameras once Season 3 of Discovery is wrapped. As of today, we know that scripting is finished on the last episode of Season 3, because Michelle Paradise tweeted that earlier today. So that will go in front of the cameras at some point in the next month or so. And that means that, that clears clears the road for Section 31 to ramp up in 2-3 months and have filmed 2-3 episodes before San Diego Comic-Con, which is where Discovery was for season 1 when we got a trailer. But maybe they'll announce a new show there too.
That's right. And not to mention that they've been mostly having this thing happening sort of like, well, as most things were, let's face it, because we now have 2 tentpole events in that regard for the year. So San Diego would, take the lead and have a big announcement, and then it will be followed by something else or further, exploration of what's to come at New York Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
So goodness knows what we're going to hear by the end of the year. Maybe there will be even more stuff announced.
Maybe STLV.
Yeah. You But as I said, possibilities are endless at this point. It's so exciting. It's impossible.
Well, let's switch from talking about facts to talking about theories and speculate on what's going to happen in the future of Star Trek.
You make some very good points, Captain. But it's still all speculation and theory.
So, of course, each week I and my guests give you a theory or wish about the future of Picard, Discovery, the franchise, anything. Marina, I think we already started talking about your wish or theory for this week, but let's recap and dig in.
Well, I actually have more, something that I was going to add.
Okay.
I do feel that they will start pulling in more legacy characters as Picard's progresses. Again, just a gut feeling. I know that Patrick said that he would like to see the rest of the TNG compadres join him, but I have a feeling that because it feels like the story is expansive. I mean, they are dealing with, at least as far as we know, in the first season with the Romulans and the Borg. Who knows what else is going to happen going forward, but bottom line, we have that pool, if you will, of these characters that coexist chronologically within TNG era. Any one of them can show up potentially, if you think about it. There have been rumblings, something about possibly Bob Picardo appearing in the second season.
Yep.
So there you go, already something, little whisperings and everything. So that's sort of my, overall sense that they will probably, again, they seem to be very careful about doing that, not to sort of deteriorate into fan service. I'm sure there will be reason why those particular characters would appear, but I think there will be more.
Who would you like to see?
Not to be very, very obvious. Well, no, I will give you my number one. And I want, she would be Admiral, if she's still in Starfleet, I would like to see Admiral Janeway to appear. And It kind of makes sense, but that it's there and they do have some sort of connection, I suppose, through Nemesis. But realistically speaking, there's probably a pretty good ways that you can find for Janeway to appear. And keeping fingers crossed.
We shall see. I mean, Kate's still doing a lot of work in the acting sphere. So I think if they came back and gave her something that she wanted to do, I think she'd probably do it. Yeah.
But again, if there is a reason for the character to be there and it's well written, then of course, why not do it? I mean, it's not something that she would have to carry the show. So there are definitely a whole lot of avenues that can be found that they can make it work. So I can't wait to see how the story unfolds, what they're going to come up with. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I expect great things from Picard because, as we all know, there had to be something very special to get Patrick to come back.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think that ties in very well with my wish for this week. So I don't have a theory this week because I'm just trying to sort of take the show as it comes at me. And I'm trying not to kind of build up my expectations too high for it. Not because I think it's going to be bad or anything like that, but just because, the initial reactions out of the premiere were very positive from the people that I talked to who saw it, who I told them, I just want a 100% no spoiler reaction. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think about it? And so the reaction was very positive, but I don't want to go in thinking I know what the story is, because I'm sure that story is going to be very different from what I expect.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I found myself not doing something that I admit doing before the first season of Discovery came out, where I did try to kind of like, okay, well, here's where I think things are going, and it looks like this thing is hinting at that. And I'm like, I'm not doing that at all.
Yeah.
With Picard. I just want to see what happens. As you mentioned, all our mutual friends were incredibly impressed and excited from what they saw. And so, fully mind open. I am looking forward to seeing what the story is, where Star Trek is in Picard.
And so I think my wish is just that I get something that gives me something to think about, that I enjoy, that I'm going to look forward to every week. And I have no reason to expect that it won't. But this is the last episode of this show that I will record before I know what the show is, right? The next time I record this show, next week, we'll have Jen Tift on, and I'm sure we'll be talking lots about, news around the premiere and what's in the show. And then we'll probably start theorizing furiously about the things that happened in episode 1 and what that means for episode 2. But at this point, I'm just going into it with a huge amount of hope and excitement and good feelings and gratitude that I get to be in this place at this time and have this thing that I never would have dreamed possible being now only 6 days away. And it's going to get here. And when it lands, I will react to it based on what I see. And I'm sure I will feel differently about it then than I do today, in sort of a Schrodinger's cat way, that once you observe it, you automatically change it. But this sort of wonderful feeling that I have right now is one that I look forward to carrying with me through the rest of the week and then past the premiere and into the rest of this golden age of Star Trek. So that is my sort of, I guess it's less of a wish and more of a reflection on where things stand now, right before we get this iconic and my favorite character in all of Star Trek back on our television screens for the first time in 20 years. Do you have a theory or wish for Picard, Discovery, or the future of the franchise that you'd like to share? Tweet them to me at WeeklyTrek, and I might feature your theory in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Marina Kravchuk, for joining me today. Marina, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
Thank you very much for having me again. This was fun. And oh boy, how much I cannot wait till next week. So I can be found online on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all three under my full name. Or you can always use the handle at Dracorex, DRAKKOREX. Actually, it does work for Facebook as well, I believe. At least I know I used it there before. The Facebook is locked to my friends, but I am publicly available both Instagram and Twitter. And as Alex mentioned, I am also a co-host of Shoreleaf, a Star Trek Convention community podcast, which you can find also on Facebook and on Twitter at Shoreleaf.
And you can find this show on Twitter at WeeklyTrek and me at Alexander T. Perry. And if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And please check out some of the other great shows on the Tricorder Transmissions. And if you like our shows, please also consider becoming a Patreon of Tricorder, which you can find at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And lastly, if you're looking for Star Trek news on the internet, I hope you will turn to trekcore.com. Well, thank you, Marina. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper.